I'm Zara Altair, and this is where we talk about making a good mystery great. Today we're going to talk about how to start your mystery. It's just so important. You bring your reader into your story. You want to get them there and keep them there. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon for supporting this video series and my mystery writing. And if you'd like to join us, there's a link in the description below. So, what are the basic elements of the first chapter of a mystery? You define the course of the story. You're introducing all the elements of your story, the tone, your protagonist, how the story feels, where the story is set. It's your story's first impression, and you want to get your readers involved in that first impression so they don't leave your book. All right. The beginning starts your reader on a journey all the way to the conclusion, all the way to that reveal at the end. And you want to plant those first seeds so they can grow as the story progresses. So the very beginning is all about planting your seeds. Sometimes people call it setup, for things that are going to happen later in the story. The first sentence is just so important. It is the hook, the immediate hook that brings your reader in. And you don't have to get it right the first time. As you're writing your novel, you can come up with new ideas for what the first sentence can be. I know on my current work in progress, I've changed that first sentence 5 times, and it's quite possible that it will change again. So remember, nothing is carved in stone. But it pulls your reader into the story. You're not revealing the murder at this time. You're just getting people into the story. And when you write your first draft, just get the reader into the story, and you can always go back and redo that first line, play around with it, because it's so important. It is the very first thing the reader reads, all right? So, Jacob Appel said, an opening line should have a distinctive voice, a point of view, a rudimentary plot, and some hint of characterization. So that's a lot to get in that first sentence. So don't worry about spending your time with it and redoing it as you write your novel. All right. So then let's talk about the first paragraph. This is where you introduce the setting and a conflict. It's not the big conflict of the story, which is solving the mystery. This is a conflict because you're going to show your protagonist, your detective, in action. All right, so ground the reader with the place where they are in Los Angeles today, Victorian New York, Rome under Claudius. It doesn't matter. You just want to let your reader know where they are in space and in time. All right. And then as you continue on your first page, you want to introduce your sleuth and give them reaction to that little conflict you just mentioned. So display one of their skills or shortcomings to give your reader a sense of who the sleuth is and how they react in the world. And even more importantly, it gives your reader an immediate emotional connection with your sleuth. It's one of the things that triggers their desire to follow the sleuth on this mystery solving journey. All right. And the first chapter, all right, you want to introduce your sleuth by showing them in action in their everyday world. All right. And that doesn't mean they have breakfast, but and how they get up and how they look at themselves in the mirror. Forget all that stuff. What you want to show is them in their everyday world, It's how they work. It's who they see. And maybe there's a sidekick or a partner, and how they respond to conflict. And we've just set up this little conflict. You want to give your readers an idea of how your sleuth responds to conflict. What do they do? How do they work with conflict? Um, get your reader acquainted with your sleuth. That's the job of the first chapter. This is like the big introduction of your character, and get your reader involved. Show aspects of their personality. Don't have to know everything. These are all hints. Remember, you're setting up for the rest of the story. And you're planting the seed of how the sleuth will solve the big mystery. You want to make sure that the tone that you start with is the tone that you carry through for the rest of the story, because readers prefer certain tones, and so you want to let your reader know right away the tone of your story, how you write, how you tell the story, because it's either going to appeal to them or it's not. Don't worry about the it's not people. Just make sure that the tone that you present at the beginning is the tone that you're going to use throughout the rest of the story. And then my suggestion is you revisit the first chapter once you've written the end of your first draft. Just go back to that first draft. Go back to that first chapter and see how you've planted seeds for the rest of the story. That's the whole job of that first chapter, is to plant seeds for what's to come. Your first requirement at the beginning is to bring your reader into the story, to get them engaged, to get them to care about your character, and to get them to wonder what that mystery is going to be and how that character that they've just met is going to solve that mystery. So let's look at a couple of ways of hooking your reader. You can begin with that gripping opening scene and establish the central mystery early on, even in the first chapter. You definitely introducing the protagonist and their motivations. Why do they want to solve this mystery? All right. You want to create a sense of urgency, and you once again want to foreshadow future events. And the way that your protagonist deals with this minor conflict at the beginning is going to foreshadow how they are going to deal with solving the mystery. All right. So you're setting the scene and establishing the tone. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do in that first chapter. You have the whole rest of the novel to tell the story. So just think of it as planting those seeds for the rest of your novel. So also, how do you get your reader engaged at the beginning? I mentioned that your tone needs to match preferred tone that the reader likes, but you want to develop a strong and relatable main character for sure, and also any other characters that you introduce in that beginning. You want to write dialogue that advances the story. You want to keep the pacing fast and unpredictable, and you want to create tension with that little conflict that you're introducing at the beginning, and you definitely want to create a sense of mystery in every scene. So you define the course of the story, and this is your story's first impression for your reader, and the beginning starts your reader on that course to the conclusion. So you plant those first seeds so they can grow as your story progresses. Okay, so let's just go through some ways to hook the reader. You want to start with a hook that draws the reader into the story. That's why conflict works so well, just a little conflict. Um, it could be something as simple as a neighbor has a complaint, but it's still conflict for your character and they have to deal with it. And as they deal with it, you're showing your reader how your character responds to conflict. You can introduce the central mystery in the first chapter. Many people wait for a couple of chapters in for the inciting incident to introduce the main mystery of the story. It's up to you. You definitely want to establish your protagonist and their motivations. You really planting the seeds of how this person operates in their world. All right. Um, Once again, you want to give them a sense of the setting. Bring your reader into the place where that story is, and if you're writing in the past or in the future, you want to give them a sense of what was going on in that time period with little tiny hints, not great big long narrative passages, just little tiny hints of what it's like in this time period. You want to use vivid descriptions. You want to use dialogue to reveal character more. And you want to leave just a little tiny cliffhanger at the end of the chapter so your reader's going to go on to read chapter 2. Okay, writing a strong first chapter is the key to making your mystery a success. It is, because you got to get your reader in at the beginning. So following these tips, you can create a first chapter that sets the stage for captivating mystery and keeps your reader engaged till the end. So one more thing about the ordinary world. This is something that many first-time writers have trouble dealing with. You know, what it's like. You know, what's their favorite coffee or something like that. And that is not what we're talking about in the ordinary world. Um, Look at your ordinary world or your friend's ordinary world. It's not that exciting, right? And we're going to get the reader involved and excited, right, with a little, right at the beginning. So with a little creativity and imagination, you can turn the ordinary world of your protagonist into an extraordinary world. It's like, give them that conflict. Get your reader involved in the character and how they deal with the world around them. You can even make their environment a challenge. Um, so give them a skill or a talent that they'll use later on, but that they use right at the beginning, so your reader has an idea of how your detective deals with problems. All right. So, example, if your detective is a chef, you can make the kitchen the scene of the crime and have them use their culinary skills to crack the case. Or if your detective is a seasoned traveler, you can send them on a journey to far off lands and have them use their knowledge of different cultures to solve the mystery. So by bringing that extraordinary world into their everyday life, you create a unique and engaging world and get your readers involved. All right, this is part 1. Next week we're going to deal with um, mistakes and how to avoid them. But I just wanted to give you an overview of what we want to do in the beginning of the story, from the first sentence to the first page to the first chapter. It's like you're planting seeds. Think of it as planting seeds. And there's so many details about your detective that you probably want to bring into your story. You don't have to bring them in all at the beginning. The beginning is all about hints for your reader and teases for your reader. Okay, I hope that helps. And I wanted to remind everybody that Audible is a sponsor for Write a Killer Mystery. And one of the things I did last night was I investigated 4 beginnings because I knew I was going to talk about this today. So, 4 different novels and their beginnings to see how each writer started off their story, and they were so very different in the way they started their story. And I did that by listening to the beginnings of 4 different novels on Audible. So this is a way you as a writer can use Audible to like check something that you are thinking about and how you're dealing with your story. So if you haven't experienced Audible, there's a link to a 30-day free trial in the description below. So give it a try. It's lots of fun to listen and read. All right, I hope that helps you with starting your novel. It's a big undertaking, and getting it right can take a lot of work. And I know that going back and playing with it as you develop more things in your story later on, there may be seeds that you want to plant back at the beginning so you can add those little seeds as you go. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you. If you like this video, please click the like and subscribe. And I'll see you next week with part 2, the mistakes that you can make with your beginnings and how to avoid them. All right. Keep writing.